Well, good evening. Welcome to those of you who are here in the audience, and welcome to those of you who are watching on live stream. Again, today is Tuesday, July 27th, and this is a regular board meeting of the Gilbert Governing Board. We have just concluded an executive session, and so we are ready at item 2, opening items, calling this meeting to order. We'll go to a moment of silence, and then if you will join me with the pledge after our moment of silence. Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Please join me with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're at item 2.04, roll call. Ms. Wilson, would you please assist us with that?
Dr. Charles Santa Cruz,
Here.
Ms. Laurie Wood,
Here.
Ms. Sheila Ugeti,
Here.
Ms. Jill Humphreys.
Here.
Mr. President, all board members are present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. We're at item 3, is a need for a public hearing relative to item 3.01 for FY 2022 instructional time model for secondary grades 7 through 12, synchronous learning. So as we move to that, is there a motion to open a public hearing?
I move that we open a public hearing on the instructional model.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ugeti. Any discussion? All those in favor, then, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries 4-0. We move to item 3.01. Dr. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. Governing board members, a month or so ago, I think in a work study that we had, we discussed the instructional time model and what the requirements are for that. And this is part of that requirement, having 2 public hearings. I'll turn it over to Ms. Betts to give a little presentation related to that.
Good evening, governing board members, Dr. Santa Cruz, Dr. McCord. Much like we're required to hold a public hearing for the adopted budget, we are holding a public hearing to gather feedback and input from the public and further from you as you so desire. And so there have been some updates, so I'll just go through the presentation and we can open it up after that. There we go, sorry. So just to start, and I won't repeat the House Bill 2862 requirements and definitions, but it's there for those who are interested in knowing some more of the details. We are focusing on secondary synchronous online learning. So just to define synchronous, it basically means that they're online, so students that are at home and the teacher is at school providing instruction during the normal scheduled class time versus asynchronous where the student is largely working on their own. So this is specific to synchronous online learning, and the attendance or capturing of the student instead of a positive attendance where we're actually collecting minutes in this particular case, we will be able to take attendance during that class period. And then therefore that gives us the flexibility for purposes of reporting for our average daily membership or student count. And then taking attendance, we will be educating registrars as well as teachers on how they will take attendance so that we can maximize the student count, which therefore maximizes the funding for that student. So whether they are full-time or part-time, we are able to do this due to House Bill 2862. So I'm pointing at Sean again to figure out how I get this to go. Did it go? Okay. So House Bill 2862 was the original House bill that the governor signed. However, during the budget reconciliation bill, the legislature did make some changes. So the most notable change, let's see if I can get this to go. I don't know why. Okay. So prior to this, let's see. So these are definitions. And then during, on this particular slide, we are specifically talking about how we account for student time during the school year. So you can see in B, it indicates after 2 public hearings, a governing board may adopt an instructional time model or multiple models to meet the minimum annual instructional time. And the purpose here is to provide some flexibility to school districts to provide instruction to students in multiple ways. So in this particular case, we are still obligated to meet the full instructional time required by statute to get the full average daily membership for students. So the change that occurred, so in E, if you look at E on this slide, it indicates that a school district or charter school may define instructional time and hours to include any combination of the following. So in-person instruction, obviously, remote instruction up to 50% of its total school instructional time without any impact on the school district's or charter schools' funding. The prior House bill indicated district. So now the legislature, in the reconciliation of the budget bill, has narrowed this to each individual school. So at this point in time, if we ever wanted to offer asynchronous learning as a global school, we would only be receiving 50% of the funding with global as they are 100% online. So we are focusing on synchronous, in which all the students are accounted for, synchronous secondary, where all the students are accounted for at the junior high or high schools. So they are actually enrolled at Mesquite High or at Gilbert High or at Highland High, as opposed to enrolled in Global Academy. So that's the largest distinction.
I just had a couple questions about D. I understand direct instruction, project-based learning. I didn't really understand what the legislature meant by independent learning. I mean, I think I know what independent learning, but master-based learning, I really need to understand that better.
So I would really like some help from my colleague, Dr. Newman.
Hello, good evening. It's mastery-based learning is generally what they
okay.
would call that.
Okay.
So just looking at the standards and ensuring that students have mastered the level of proficiency for those standards.
Okay. Thank you. That when you put the Y on there, then I understand it better. Thank you.
Okay, great. So specific to the instructional time model, which we will bring to you at the next board meeting after our second public hearing for approval. So right now, we are focusing, as I indicated, on 712 and specific to synchronous online instruction. So for fiscal year 2022, the following learning options are offered. So in elementary, we are offering in-person on elementary campuses, or we are offering only synchronous online instruction where all the students are enrolled at Global Academy. So under those circumstances, they will be scheduled during the school day. They will be taught by teachers during the school day, and they will be taking attendance, but they will be a Global Academy student. For secondary, we're offering, of course, in-person on campus, synchronous online enrolled at the secondary schools, and then asynchronous online enrolled at Global Academy. Asynchronous really accommodates the student and the student's schedule, where they can take the class on their own time, whether it's at the normal school day or at 10 o'clock at night. Okay? So the whole goal, or one of the goals of this, other than providing flexibility to students, is to maximize our average daily membership, or our student count, which maximizes our funding. So, in order for us to be able to do that, the board would have to adopt this instructional time model. So, again, the class hour is scheduled during the normal school day as one or more of the students' classes. So this is really indicating to you that we can take a full-time student or a part-time student. The student is expected to be online and engaged with the teacher at the scheduled time on their class schedule. Enrollment, so again, students are enrolled at the junior high or high school of their choice and are reported to the Department of Ed as part of this secondary school. And then taking attendance, as is normally done for any on-campus, attendance is taken by the teacher at the beginning of each synchronous online class period and then reported accordingly. As I indicated, training will go out to all the schools to assist them in doing this, though this is very comparable to how we operated most of last year when students were remote learning.
Dr. Santa Cruz, may I ask Ms. Betts?
Go ahead, Ms.
Okay.
Wood.
Ms. Betts, so with this, I'm just wondering, are the asynchronous, are the synchronous ever attached to Global Academy, or they're always attached to a high school?
They have a line of enrollment at the high school, and
Okay.
they're taught by a Global Academy teacher, I believe, in a synchronous model.
And then what about the asynchronous?
And then the
Will you talk about
asynchronous is fully a global,
Okay.
global, reported at global, and the teacher is a global teacher.
Okay, thanks.
And one question I have is that this model would be fully funded at 100%.
That's correct.
The one that we're looking to adopt. Whereas Global Academy is considered, I don't know, online instruction, so it's 95% if they're a full-time student, 85% if they're a part-time student.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And then the other advantage of this particular instructional time model for purposes of funding, again, is that we would eliminate concurrencies for part-time students. So if a part-time student is enrolled in 3 or 4 classes synchronously and then actually attends school for another 2 classes, there will not be a concurrency. They will be 100% funded as a full-time FTE. Okay. So only in the event of a statewide closure. So we wanted to make sure that we are anticipating the possibility, understanding that we are still in a pandemic here in the United States. So in the event that there is a statewide closure ordered by the governor or the legislature, we would move to a K-12 synchronous model district-wide. So if you recall, last year we did that at the beginning of the school year, and everyone was synchronous district-wide. And at that point in time, though, they were noted as distance learning, and we still had the reduction down to 95%. That was the distance learning adjustment. So with this flexibility offered by this House bill, as well as the reconciliation bill associated with the budget, that gives school districts and charter schools the flexibility to continue to maintain full funding throughout the school year in this event. Okay, whoops. Okay. Come on. Okay, so now, again, to maximize average daily membership, which is our student count, and then therefore funding. So just to share what Mrs. Humphreys just reminded us, so online, full-time or part-time, the normal funding is funded at 95% for full-time, and part-time is funded at 85%. The other complexity is that the online students have what we call positive attendance, so they need to record their minutes on the online platform to receive their full-time status and to be funded at 95%. So the proposed secondary synchronous online instructional time model It eliminates the 5% or 15% reduction, and the average daily membership funding calculations for high school students, just as an example. So 100% funding per student would be $5,747 and change. 95% is almost $300 per student less, and then 85% is almost $900 per student less. So it does have the potential to have a very positive impact on our funding once this model is adopted. Okay. So the next steps, as I indicated, we will prepare for the next public hearing. We are still waiting for further guidance from the Department of Education on if there's any other details that we're missing to get this implemented. We will continue to train and describe the process for generating average daily membership. At that point in time, on the 10th, we will have an action item for you as a governing board to approve. And we will be specific that we are asking you to approve the Synchronous 712 instructional time model for all of next year, and in the event of a statewide closure, that we would adopt that instructional time model K-12 in a synchronous setting.
And when you say next year, do you mean?
I mean
this-
fiscal 2022, the current year that we're just beginning.
Okay, so
Yes, sorry.
you're talking about getting it adopted and implemented. That was my question. Once we adopt this, I mean, because we're adopting this shortly after school starts, if it passes, when would students be able to enroll? I mean, is there a planning time or a?
So they're already enrolling because we already were planning on offering the synchronous online option. And the decision was made prior to our discussions about the instructional time model that the students would be enrolled at their secondary campus. So those have set us up quite nicely to be able to implement this. So now it is a training issue regarding taking attendance and making sure our registrars understand that they are enrolled at Highland Junior or at Mesquite Junior or at Gilbert High School. And then continuing to train the teachers on taking attendance in this environment.
Because we've really kind of done this already.
You
through
really
the
kind of done it
pandemic.
already, yeah.
I mean, it's not really new, it's just putting into statute what we've already done and then improving the funding level for those students.
Right. Yep.
And I believe this is what the legislature intended for us to do, so that in seeing how the last couple of years, how there's been all kinds of different modes offered, I think this was the intent to try and say, make whatever is best meeting the students' needs to be educated full-time. However you're doing that as a district, we would like to fund you for that. But we need to know your plan and how you're going to be accountable for that. That's what I take that as, not that we're trying to, switch up something that, I think this was their exact intent.
And for me, being the CFO, it was important to maximize funding as much as possible as we are educating these students. I also believe that for our secondary students, high school students probably in particular, it has some great potential. If I'm a high school student that would rather take my first 2 classes at home in my pajamas, it may really catch on, and we may see more and more students wanting to take advantage of this offering, which again meets the needs of our students. So it's a win-win.
I do have a question because it's not fully remote. It's not that they're always online. It's only 40% of the time or 50. Can you explain that part of it? I mean, do we bring those students into the schools or what? That 40% or 50%? I'm confused about that.
So, and there is some confusion surrounding that. So it does say the school's instructional time. So the school is, if it's Mesquite Junior High, the school is going to be operating 180 school days. So of the students that are attending, it just means that in order for us to receive full funding, that cannot exceed 50% of the instructional time of the school. So the interpretation is that it's in the aggregate, not on a student-by-student
Okay,
basis.
so the student doesn't have to be in school 50% of the time
That's
and at home
correct.
50% of the time.
That's correct.
That just among the student population, no more than 40% of your population is taking.
Correct. So
the
if 40%
class
of all the students at Mesquite Junior were taking this option where they were part-time synchronous, remote, and part-time in school, we would be fine. We would be receiving full funding for those students. If it were 60%, we would only receive up to the 50% of funding, full funding for those students due to the instructional time.
Okay, I think I understand it better now.
Okay.
That's a very little quirk that is hard to understand exactly what they're meaning with.
Well, and I do
there.
think that it was a twofold. I think that the intent of the House bill was to provide greater flexibility to school districts for meeting the needs of students. This is just something that we believe that we could implement in the current year and have everyone be acclimated to taking attendance and understanding how it all works so that we would be prepared for the future.
Okay, thank you.
And that's all that I have.
Board members, anything further? Don't have any requests to speak to this topic at this point. First glance at it at a public hearing, so I'm sure that there will be some questions at the second hearing. So, item 3.02 is request to speak. There are none. So item 3.03 is the adjournment of this public hearing. Is there a motion?
I move that we adjourn the public hearing for the instructional time model.
Thank you, Ms. Ujetti. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Wood. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, then we will vote. All those in favor of adjourning the public hearing, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries 4-0. We move to item 4, reconvene our regular board meeting. We have a motion to reconvene, item 4.01.
I move that we reconvene our regular board meeting.
Ms. Humphries,
Sorry.
thank you. Ms. Ujetti, thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded that we reconvene our regular board meeting. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote to reconvene. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. We will go to item 5. We're just a series of motions here. 5.01 is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Discussion. Seeing none, we will vote on approving tonight's agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Okay, motion carries 4-0. Item 6 is Superintendent's Recognition Awards. Dr. McCord, item 6.01.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. Governing board members, if you could join me in front of the dais, we have a couple of people we'd like to recognize this evening. Good evening, everyone. How are you? It's okay to talk. You good? Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Welcome to our first meeting of the 21-22 school year. And I'm glad to kick it off with a couple of recognitions. This summer we had some folks get recognized for some things that they've done, and I think it's important that we recognize them here. The first person, if she would come up, would be Sharon Boomer, principal of Spectrum Elementary. You gotta stand right next to me while I talk about you. Mrs. Boomer has won the National Association of Elementary School Principals Award for the elementary and middle level principals. Each year, they're recognized with their National Distinguished Principal Program. The award honors a principal's outstanding efforts and work to ensure that America's children acquire a sound foundation for lifelong learning and achievement. And I know that Mrs. Boomer is heavily involved in this organization. This is a well-deserved honor, and we want to thank her for everything that she does. Congratulations. She has an award. We've given it to her 3 other times this summer because we've recognized her, but we want to make sure we do it here. So
Thank you.
come on this way. Jason, can you get a picture? Congratulations on getting the chair. Okay, next, can I have Clarissa Monreal? There you are. Come on up. And Carrie Blackburn. These are educators from Campo Verde. Please give them a hand. And there's their distinguished new principal, Mr. Tyler Dumas. Raise your hand. There you go. Smile. Is that a smile? There it is. These two have been recognized as a Project Lead the Way Distinguished High School for the 2nd year running, one of 42 schools in the U.S. to receive this recognition. Can you guys, one of you, I know, I'll let you fight over it, explain what this award is and what it's about for everyone so they have a good understanding? Oh my gosh. Make something up if you don't know. There you go. Oh, you are prepared. You.
So Project Lead the Way is our curriculum that we use through all 4 years of biomed, and we had to apply and prove the things that we're doing. And so in order to meet the criteria to become a distinguished school, 95% of students had to take the end of curriculum assessment at the end of the year. 25% of students or more had to participate in more than one PLTW course, so more than one level. At least 33% of our students had to have 2 or more PLTW courses, so biomed is a 4-year program. And we have to offer students enrolled in at least 3 courses, and so Campo Verde offers all 4. And then we have to implement strategies and procedures to support reasonably proportional representation with regard to race, ethnicity, poverty, gender, and can support these claims with data.
Do you guys get that? Basically, 1 out of 42 in the United States. Now, think of that. We actually have 50 states. We're going to get a little geography. 50 states, so it's not even representative of the entire United States. This is what happens when you put good educators over great programs. It makes exceptional students. So congratulations to both of you. Congratulations to Campo. Please give them another hand. One more time. Thank you very much. Governing board members, that concludes my recognitions for this evening.
We now move to item 7, which is Superintendent's Report, item 7.01. Dr. McCord.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz, governing board members. Again, everyone, welcome for this evening's meeting. I hope everyone had a restful, a relaxing, enjoyable time with your family this summer. Summer's over, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to get the kids back to school, and some of you are smiling really big about that. I can see out there in the audience. And we're happy to have them. Today, our new teachers to Gilbert Public Schools, whether they're new to education or new to Gilbert Public Schools, but have taught for a while, showed up for work today. We met over at Highland Junior High, and we greeted all of them, and we shared some fun stories, and we gave them some professional development, and we're very proud and we're very lucky to have these folks. We give our principals a lot of things and a lot of direction in terms of what we expect of them, and their number one priority is to hire the very best. And as I mixed and mingled with these folks this morning and got to know them a little bit, I'm pretty sure that we hired some of the very best. So thank you to them. All of our teachers return this Friday to start work, and so they'll be on their campuses getting their classrooms ready to go. Speaking about ready to go, our operations department has been extremely busy this summer with several projects at several of our schools. Most projects will be completed when we welcome back students on Wednesday, August 4th. There will be some projects that will not be fully completed, but that won't interfere with the health and safety of our children nor the education of what we're going to provide them. A huge thank you to our operations department and our building managers, ground crews, and custodial staff. Your hard work and dedication has truly paid off, and it's evident when you step on a campus. Again, to all of them, thank you. And lastly, I just wanted to update everyone on the replacement for our former governing board member, Mr. Reed Carr. I communicated with the Maricopa County Superintendent's office late last week, and they told me they were very close to naming a replacement. We will communicate that information out to everyone once it's available. Dr. Santa Cruz, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. McCord. And just an aside, our congratulations to operations. At the beginning of the year, when we saw that list of projects, it was quite ambitious. So to know that there are just a few lingering things that won't interfere with instruction is a good thing. So we appreciate that.
It's like anything else when it comes to construction. Materials are sometimes hard to come by, and so they are struggling with some of those things, but they have timelines and they will meet them, so it's good.
Thank you, sir. We move to item 8 as a request to speak to the governing board, and we have 4 requests this evening. Ms. Wood will play the recorded message. Okay. Recorded message, please. The board may make an open call to the public during a public meeting, subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions to allow individuals to address the public body on an issue within the jurisdiction of the public body. At the conclusion of the open call to the public, individual board members may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the board, may ask the staff to review a matter, or may ask a matter to be put on a future agenda. However, members of the board shall not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during the open call to the public unless the matters are properly noticed for discussion and legal action. During the open call, the board requests that speakers refrain from voicing complaints against school personnel or any person connected with the district, as it may impact due process rights. Policy KE, KEB, and KED are provided by the board for disposition of legitimate complaints, including those involving individuals. Forms required for use of these policies can be obtained from the Gilbert Public Schools website. Our speakers will come to the microphone in the following order: Amber McAfee, Gerald Bradley, Jocelyn Kozier, and Cheryl Massey. Speakers will have 3 minutes.
Board members, hello. I'm sure many of you are hearing, just as I am, from the pro-mask side that the Delta variant is very dangerous and we need to start pro-masking and masking kids in school, and the CDC has come out suggesting it. I am here as a parent to ask that you follow the state mandate and the state laws, which says that you cannot forcibly mask children in school. I have a little bit of information I'd like to share. None of this should be new. Masks do not filter out COVID, except properly fitted N95 masks. I never saw a single child or anyone on campus wearing such a mask, so that's not even anything that kids will be wearing, so that doesn't apply here. Masks do cause hypoxia, mask acne, increased dental and gum disease, fight or flight syndrome, which suppresses the immune system, speech delays, and many other devastating problems. The World Health Organization also stated face masks should not be required as no evidence is available on its usefulness to protect non-sick people. Therefore, if you aren't sick, you should not be in a mask. Please let parents decide if they should mask their children. They are the ones who know their children, they know their health history, they know what's best for them. According to the CDC, kids also aren't spreaders of COVID, and statistically, schools have lower transmission rates than the community outside. The CDC also believes that anywhere from 49 to 62% of all kids under 19 are already naturally immune to COVID due to exposure. The Journal of American Medical Association analyzed over 77,000 people and found that asymptomatic transmission was 0.7%, which statistically means it doesn't exist. There has been a 67 increase among the youth of suicides in Pima County, very close to us. That's a real increase. That is something that we should all be concerned about. That has to do with masking, lockdowns, school closure, and all the other devastating social effects of COVID. The Delta variant, according to the Public Health England's Variants of Concern update, which happened this week, says that the Delta variant has a far less serious illness and death impact than the original COVID virus by a factor of 10. It is not the threat that we are being led to believe it is. Finally, the CDC stated this week that the PCR test has failed its review. The emergency use authorization has been revoked because of too many false positives. This was a test that the board used to justify closing down, justified hybrid, justified masking. We were all lied to. None of that should have occurred, and there has been devastating impacts on our youth and adults. The CDC also says that 1 out of 4 adults has contemplated suicide in this last year. Can you imagine the impact on children? We adults, we have history, we have wisdom, we have maturity, we have experience. Those kids have nothing. And to mask them again. So I'm asking you, as the voices that are pro-mask get louder this week and louder as school starts, please listen to the hundreds, if not thousands of parents who agree with what I'm saying. Don't mask our kids again. We tried that. It didn't work. Please let parents have the choice and keep our children mask-free. Thank you.
Thank you. Gerald Bradley?
Thank you. My name is Gerald Bradley. Just a brief background. I had 2 children, elementary age kids I had online educated last year. Part of the reasons was, of course, the coronavirus and the unknown elements about the virus at that time last year. The district, I thought, took it seriously last year. Schools acted quickly, considering this was a pandemic we knew very little about, and took mitigation measures. They did work. At least at the school that my kids go to, which is Neely, when I looked at the statistics, I was very impressed. I knew Neely did a great job with their mitigation measures. There were so few COVID cases there, you couldn't even say they happened at the school. So they were successful. The organizations that are now encouraging us to continue to do those measures are the CDC, Arizona's own AZDHS, Dr. Kara Christ, the American Association of Pediatrics. I'll spare you the list, but it goes on, and it's from dozens and dozens of educational and medical organizations. And that's because the science backs up what they're recommending. They're not just doing it for no reason. The good news is, it looks like there may be a vaccine for children midwinter, maybe earlier, So in some senses, it looks like we're reaching the finish line where we're going to be through this, and this may be something that is more like the flu, where people that get vaccinated or kids that get vaccinated, if it turns out to be safe, it's something we can all manage. They're not going to infect their grandparents, their parents, and have people die. The Delta variant, there's things we don't know about it, but it's way more transmissible. That's something we know. It is dangerous. Children do die from it. There's reports of them dying. There's reports of them on vents in other states, and they're in ICU. And I just read something about hundreds of children in other countries have died from it. So obviously I can't back that up, but that's what the articles say. So I imagine the district wants to have some sort of compromise between folks like myself and folks like the last speaker. And that makes sense. Well, Governor Ducey's mandate allows people that don't want to send their children with a mask to do that. However, we also have to take into consideration the people that care about the safety of our children and feel that mitigation measures are still appropriate. So I'm asking the board to do everything that they can within the mandate and considering the mandate by Governor Ducey to encourage policies that were the mitigation measures that were successful last year. I'm not asking for the district to tell all the kids they need to be masked. I know you can't do that. I'm not asking that. But I do think that it's your job, and it's the school's job to keep the kids safe. So I don't think that kids that wear masks or kids that don't should be ostracized, bullied, or anything like that.
Time.
Yep.
Hi there, my name is Justin Kauser, and I am just here on behalf of parents tonight. We're excited for this school year. We're excited for our kids to get back to normal, get back in school, get back to their activities and all of the things that they've been anticipating. So I'm just here to ask you, as you discuss the COVID mitigation plan for this year, to put our children's education first. We want to see them have a successful, happy, education-filled year. We are over the political propaganda that has plagued all of these decisions throughout the last year across our state and our country. And we just don't want to see another year of education for our children jeopardized. I realize that everyone has different levels of comfort with COVID, and that's where parents come into play. The last speaker mentioned that it's your job to keep our children safe. I think it's my job to keep my children safe. It's your job to keep my children educated. So I feel like each family can decide their own comfort level, decide what's best for their kid, and decide how to do that. I'm happy to see that we have options with the synchronized online or asynchronized online, all those different options, so that it can kind of fit everybody's model and every parent can choose what's best for their kid. So as we discuss these mitigation things, again, I just want to see our kids be successful, our kids have the academic year that they deserve, and let parents have a choice. Let parents decide what's best for their kids, and when they come to school, let's maximize their education. And I want to thank you for your time, and that's all.
Cheryl Massey.
Hi. It's been a long time since I've been in front of a microwave. In case you haven't figured me out, I am not a parent of any of the children in the school. I am a grandmother who is hoping to see my children live in democracy, not, what else we have. We're on our way to communism unless we do something. So I am changing the subject of what everybody else has talked about, but it would really work with your education plan, whether the children are in school or if they are online. I dropped off about 3 weeks ago a curriculum that was created by Wall Builders if you go on wallbuilders.com, it's the men there that do the speaking explains the Constitution simple for people to understand. We are having some of our rights taken away, as it is at this point, that the government didn't give us. So they really have no business taking them away, such as free speech, which is one of them. The curriculum is in the hands of the K-12 social studies coordinator, who is apparently new this year. So I asked if he would return my call after he has a chance to look at it. But you don't have to wait. You can go on wallbuilders.com and look for Constitution Alive. And the men there have 11 lessons that will completely explain what the Constitution is supposed to be operating like. And you can see the things that we see right now. Some of them are way wrong. They're taking rights away that they didn't give us, such as guns. That's one of them, besides the speech. Another one is protecting the right to property and to be able to protect it. So what I'm suggesting to you is that you either use this curriculum, which can be used as a class, or the children can go online and find Wall Builders Constitution Alive and take one lesson at a time. It would work well for the high school students particularly. And so when the seniors leave high school, they're ready and able to understand the Constitution that hopefully they're living under. That is the whole thing as far as making things right and taking back our rights. There's no reason why I won't fight. What have I got left? So I have 6 grandchildren.
This time, thank you. We'll now move to item 9, which is reports. We have 2 reports this evening. 9.01 will begin with the first report, Dr. McCord, on 21-22 COVID-19 mitigation strategies.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. Governing board members, let me pull this up real quick and we'll get started. Again, thank you for everyone for being here this evening. As we embark on this next school year, putting together mitigation strategies for COVID-19, and so I'll take you through those this evening. I think. There it is. First off, mitigation strategies. One of the first things we'll ask our families and our employees to do is to do the daily health check, and that consists of asking basically these 4 questions and related to your current health: having a fever or had a fever in the last 24 hours. Does your child have the following areas: a new cough, a headache, body aches, loss of sense of taste or smell, chills, sore throat, diarrhea, vomiting, and congestion or runny nose? Is anyone in your home currently being isolated for COVID-19 due to a positive test or COVID-19 symptoms? And have you been in close contact closer than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes in a 24-hour period with someone who's been diagnosed with COVID-19? Again, these are just some things that we ask all of our families and our staff to consider before going to school on a daily basis. Just know that any mandate from the state or county health departments will be followed. Any executive order from the governor's office will be followed as well. And as many of you know, we are placed and given those things over time, and you don't necessarily know when they're coming, so we have to switch sometimes on a dime, but we do the very best we can related to that. Heading into the mitigation strategies, more specifically face coverings. Face coverings will be optional based on Section 15.342 .05 passed into law with the state budget this year. That section states, notwithstanding any other law or order, a county, city, town, school district governing board, or charter school governing body may not require the use of face coverings by students or staff during school hours and on school property. And B, a school district or charter school may not require a student or teacher to receive a vaccine for COVID-19 or to wear a face covering to participate in in-person instruction. And so I want to make sure everybody understands that when the debate of mask or no masks comes up, this is what we're sitting on. As I go back to the previous slide, if this is an order, this is a law passed by the state, we are going to follow those things. This afternoon, and as it was mentioned earlier by another speaker, the CDC and ADHS recommended the use of masks indoors for those who are vaccinated and unvaccinated in areas of higher substantial transmittal areas. And someone else started to bring this up before their time was up. But we have had conversations with all of our school administrators, and we are asking, and they'll pass this on to their teachers as well and to our students. School sites will be vigilant about student and staff behavior regarding mass bullying. Again, this obviously comes down to a choice for the individual, whether they want to wear a mask or not. But it also comes down to respect. You have to respect what those individuals are choosing, and I think everybody can agree with that. Next, social distancing. We'll observe 3 feet social distancing when possible, normal traffic flows and capacities in all areas. Large group gatherings. We will allow large group gatherings, but we first ask schedule event outdoors when possible. It will be difficult at this time. It's extremely hot, and having a comfortable setting outdoors is difficult. But for the most part, we will conduct business as usual in those areas. The COVID-19 dashboard, we will update that on a weekly basis. We're thinking of a Thursday each week, but just know we haven't set the time. We'll communicate that out when that exact date is moving forward. Positive COVID-19 notification. We will continue with classroom letter to class and staff and any student within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more in a 24-hour period. Quarantining, and this is something that we needed to get a ruling on from our attorneys and Maricopa County Department of Health, and this is what they came up. It is mandated by law to quarantine students who have been identified as being in close contact with a COVID positive student or staff member. Close contact, as defined by the CDC, is being within 6 feet for 15 minutes in a 24-hour period, or physical contact with a positive person. Per the CDC and Maricopa County Department of Health, students or staff who have been vaccinated do not need to quarantine. Also, anyone who has had COVID-19 in the past 3 months do not need to quarantine, and we will just need verification of either one of those if that's the case. Athletics and athletic events. Mitigation and protocols will be determined by the Arizona Interscholastic Association. They came out with some of those protocols, I think, late yesterday afternoon, and our district athletic director has been reviewing them, and they're very similar to what we worked with last week, and we'll continue to follow those guidelines in order for our students to play sports. School closures, that will be determined by the Maricopa County Department of Public Health. Field trips, day and overnight, including out-of-state trips, may proceed. But please understand there's always a caveat related to that. If there's something going on in another state or a different part of our state, we reserve the right to decline that field trip if need be. Food services. The federal government has extended free meals for school-aged children for this school year like they had last year. So breakfast and lunch will be available to all of our families. Cleaning and disinfecting. Again, as I went back and praised our operations staff and our custodial staff, they're going to continue that. What we learned out of COVID is some of those practices that we instilled last year are best practices now moving forward, just to make sure our schools are disinfected at an appropriate rate, and it's going to be better overall for years to come for our students when it comes to germs inside of a school. Transportation will observe the 3 feet social distancing when possible. Buses will be sanitized after each route, and windows and vents will be partially opened in order to have fresh air circulating throughout. Water fountains will be open inside and outside, and we've installed a lot of water bottle filling stations at many of our schools. Not every school has them, but they're in the process of receiving those, and those will be available as well. Parents and volunteers, there are no restrictions at this time. School will monitor and adjust as needed. Classroom seating, social distance if possible, but the teacher will determine the physical layout of their classroom. We're not mandating whether they have to be in rows or they can be in groups. We're going to leave that up to the comfort level of the teacher and what they feel that they can best give the appropriate instruction for their students. Cafeteria, no formal restrictions, but stay spacing when possible while students are eating. And for recess, there are no restrictions. Again, this is as of July 27th, 2021. And again, as we've learned as we go through time, things can happen. But our main goal is to make sure we get students in the classroom, keep everybody as safe as possible, and give them the very best education that we know we can give. Governing board members, that's my presentation for this evening.
Board members, any questions, comments? None? Then we will move to item 9.02, monthly budget report as of June 30th, 2021. Dr. McCord and Ms. Betts, I think.
I will turn it over to Ms. Betts for the review of our monthly budget.
Again, good evening, governing board members, Dr. McCord. So I wanted to share that this will be the last monthly report reflecting activity for fiscal 2021, so the year that just ended. In the future, please know that at the end of September, early October, we plan to provide you with a final fourth quarter quarterly report reflecting the final fourth quarter year-to-date of fiscal 2021. At that time, we will also be presenting the annual financial report to you, and that will be provided to you for approval. So next month, we will start with the new fiscal year. So this is our district operating funds, and the results here are reflective of the results are reflective of the end of fiscal 2021 that informed the budget balance carry forward reported in the adopted budget for fiscal year 2022. So it remains the same as you saw last month. And note the two highlighted main funds, the Maintenance and Operations Fund as well as the Unrestricted Capital Outlay. So let's see. Again, this represents what is true today. We are now going through the 60-day encumbrance period where we are completing the payments of final invoices, where we are accepting final revenues from the state of Arizona as well as from our property taxpayers. In addition, this is where we're making all the adjusting journal entries. And again, as I mentioned last time, our focus is on maximizing the budget balance carry forward into fiscal 2022 so that we have as much flexibility as possible, not knowing what our student counts will be. Not until probably mid-September we'll have a good idea. So the federal grant funds, I just wanted to point out the highlighted area there of other federal projects, funds 300 to 399. You can see that the available balance is a negative $23,000. Just a detail, as part of the 300 to 399 funds, they are not budget capacity driven. And this particular claim or expenditure was from a junior ROTC, and their process is always to spend the money, submit the claim, and then we would receive reimbursement. So it's not budget driven, so we are just waiting for reimbursement for that $23,000. Due to that particular circumstance, we are going to start relabeling that column where it says adopted budget to adopted a budget / expected revenue. So it's a little bit clearer in the future. The state grant funds, the school safety grant. This was a grant that was awarded to us late, so we did not have a budget for that particular grant. But again, we have the authority to spend the $59,000. We are just waiting for reimbursement from the state of Arizona. So enterprise funds, we have shared the good news about nutrition services, primarily due to the fact that we have national free breakfast and free lunch through June 30 of 2022. But in addition, we wanted to share the positive turnaround of our community school funds. So our estimated resources has been increased by over $1 million up to $8.7 million. And we're expecting to have an available balance of about $1.3 million in that fund at the end of the fiscal year. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Ms. Betts. Questions, board members? I think you answered the 2 minus categories that were listed there, and I surmised that that was probably the case, that it was a reimbursement fund. Other than that, it was quite clear and quite well done. Anything else? All right. We'll move to item 10 then. Consent agenda items for consideration, discussion, direction, and possible approval. Item 10 is opened for a motion.
I move that we I move that we approve the consent agenda items.
It's been moved that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we will vote on the consent agenda. All those in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries 4-0. Item 11 is request for future agenda items. Once again, if there is not an agenda item that you have burning in your heart to be communicated publicly this evening, please make contact with Ms. Wilson, and she will list those for consideration with us. Item 12 is board committee reports. Item 12.01, Gilbert Education Foundation, Ms. Humphreys.
Yes, I just want to report that we have worked on the Giving Closet at Gilbert High School. That was a classroom grant that was given, and that's been completed. We have a retreat, which is a way of saying we're going to work really hard on Thursday and have a very productive day to plan our next year. So that's where we are at Gilbert Education Foundation.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphreys. Item 12.02, City of Mesa Liaison, Ms. Wood.
Nothing of note to report.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 12.05, Insurance Trust Representative, Ms. Ugetti.
We haven't met, so nothing to
Okay.
report.
Item 12.06, Legislative Representative, and I have nothing to report at this point. I think everything that concerns us budgetarily and legislatively has been very public over this summer. Item 2.03, 12.03 and 12.04 were in Mr. Carr's domain. He is not here. We don't have an appropriate substitute. You don't have any information there, Dr. McCord?
No, sir.
Okay, then there are no reports in those two areas. We move to item 13, meeting dates.
Thank you, Dr. Santa Cruz. We have our next meeting is August 10th is a work study and a brief board business meeting. August 17th is a board policy committee meeting, and August 24th is a regular board business meeting.
Thank you, sir. We reached item 14. 14.01 is adjournment. Is there a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ugetti. Discussion? Seeing none, we will vote on adjournment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, the same. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you for your attendance, those of you in the meeting room tonight and those of you on live stream, and to all staff who are here in attendance. We